because I do not want to blow into this thing. I believe in my heart of hearts that there's something that is very significant historically and archaeologically, and I think we need to take a deep breath, a long, deep breath.
Deep beneath Oak Island, a drill bit struck something that wasn't wood, stone, or mud. It was gold. After more than 2 centuries of failed expeditions, broken promises, and unanswered questions, Rick Lagina and his team may have uncovered what treasure hunters have searched for since the 1700s, a pirate fortune estimated at over $110 million. But this wasn't an ordinary treasure cache. It was hidden behind a maze of ingenious flood tunnels, pressure traps, and engineering so advanced that it protected its secret for more than 300 years. What's even more astonishing is that this fortune may have been only one vault in a vast transatlantic pirate banking network, a discovery that could rewrite everything we thought we knew about the golden age of piracy. Before we reveal what happened next, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because the evidence you're about to see is unlike anything ever uncovered on Oak Island. The breakthrough didn't come from a drill, but from a dusty auction house in Halifax, where a weathered leather journal, its pages brittle and yellow with age, held the first real clue that would change everything. What most people failed to notice, however, was the journal's unusual coded language. It didn't describe legends or myths in poetic phrases. Instead, it read almost like a technical blueprint. It referred to a stone-toothed guardian, standing watch over a hidden chamber filled with waiting gold, as though the author was documenting an engineered structure rather than telling a pirate tale. The biggest surprise came from the pages that followed. Hidden among the notes were detailed star charts and carefully drawn coastal sketches. When researchers compared them with modern satellite maps, the markings aligned with a precise location inside the Money Pit area, an area that had somehow escaped every major excavation. Even more astonishing, the target lay only a short distance from places where millions of dollars had already been spent drilling. History has a strange habit of hiding its greatest mysteries where almost nobody thinks to look. Driven by this remarkable clue, the team deployed ground-penetrating radar alongside advanced seismic tomography. The scans delivered an extraordinary result. Roughly 160 feet beneath the surface sat a perfectly rectangular void measuring about 30 feet long and nearly 10 feet wide. Its clean geometric shape ruled out any natural explanation. Everything suggested that someone had deliberately built it. The team knew this was the opportunity they had been chasing for years. Preparation took months. Engineers designed a massive 10-foot diameter caisson capable of bypassing the unstable ground and avoiding the infamous flood tunnels that had defeated countless expeditions before them. The operation demanded an enormous budget, and every stage carried significant risk. Progress was painfully slow. Every foot they descended seemed to trigger another obstacle. Local stories often claimed that Oak Island resisted anyone trying to uncover its secrets, and during the excavation, those old tales suddenly felt surprisingly believable. Drill bits slammed into rock that refused to break apart. Pumps struggled endlessly against seawater invading the shaft. Every victory came only after exhausting effort. Then, after an incredibly difficult descent, they finally reached the depth indicated by the journal. At the bottom of the caisson, solid bedrock surrounded them on every side, except for one remarkable feature. Embedded within the rock was a gigantic hand-cut granite slab. Rust-covered iron hinges still clung to its edges, suggesting it had once functioned as a massive doorway. Its surface carried an extraordinary collection of carved symbols. A skull, the Masonic square and compass, and the Templar cross appeared woven together in a mysterious design. It was an astonishing combination of pirate imagery and secret society symbolism, unlike anything the team had expected. Few people realize that the final moments before opening a hidden chamber can be the most nerve-wracking part of any treasure hunt. Using specialized cutting equipment, the crew slowly worked through the ancient granite barrier. Every minute seemed longer than the last, as the atmosphere filled with anticipation. Finally, the stone groaned under the pressure before a section collapsed inward, revealing nothing but complete darkness beyond. A remote camera was carefully lowered into the opening. Seconds later, everyone crowded around the monitor. There it was, a faint sparkle reflecting back through the darkness. Gold, not scattered coins, an entire wall of it. That first glimpse became the defining moment of a mystery that had survived more than 2 centuries. Years of searching, speculation, and sacrifice suddenly seemed worthwhile. The camera continued descending, revealing rows of gold bars stacked neatly on aging wooden pallets. Despite centuries underground, their surfaces still reflected the camera's light with an unmistakable shine. Rick and Marty Lagina stood beside the rest of the team in complete silence. The mystery was no longer just a legend. Before them sat what appeared to be a fortune valued at nearly $110 million. The journal had led them exactly where it promised. The old stories suddenly felt far more believable than anyone had imagined. But whoever designed this underground vault had done far more than simply hide treasure behind a stone door. They had prepared deadly surprises for anyone fortunate enough to reach it. What waited ahead threatened to become even more dangerous than the search itself. Crossing into the chamber felt like entering another century. The air was thick with moisture and carried the scent of salt, damp earth, and ancient timber that had rested untouched for hundreds of years. The room stretched farther than the scans had predicted, forming an enormous underground vault carved directly into the bedrock. Flashlights swept across incredible stacks of gold bars, many weighing nearly 40 pounds each and bearing the unmistakable seals of Spanish royal mints. Nearby stood more than a dozen massive oak chests. Their wood had darkened with age, while thick iron bands still held them together. Several had partially burst open, spilling countless gold doubloons, pieces of 8, brilliant emeralds, deep red rubies, and rough diamonds across the stone floor. The scene looked almost unreal. For several long moments, nobody spoke. The estimated value of $110 million had sounded impressive on paper, but standing in front of the treasure transformed that number into something almost impossible to comprehend. Yet, appearances can be deceiving. As the first investigators cautiously stepped farther into the chamber, a deep grinding noise echoed through the walls. Craig Tester immediately shouted for everyone to stop moving. Looking down, they noticed something they had completely overlooked. Several stones sat slightly lower than the surrounding floor. Pressure plates? The pirates had built an astonishingly sophisticated security system centuries before. The team's own footsteps had activated it. Without warning, a deafening roar erupted from the walls. Seawater burst through cleverly concealed floodgates with incredible force. This wasn't a slow leak. It was an overwhelming torrent. The legendary flood tunnel system had finally sprung to life, not because someone dug into it, but simply because intruders had entered the chamber itself. Within moments, panic spread throughout the vault. Water surged rapidly across the floor, surrounding the priceless treasure, and threatening to bury the greatest discovery in Oak Island's history beneath the sea once again. This was Oak Island's last line of defense. In an instant, the mission changed. The excitement of discovering the treasure was replaced by a desperate struggle to save it before the chamber disappeared beneath the sea. The crew reacted immediately, lowering powerful industrial pumps into the underground vault. What followed was no longer an excavation. It was a battle against a security system engineered more than 300 years earlier. The thunder of rushing seawater collided with the relentless roar of the pumps. Hour after hour, neither side gained the upper hand. The water refused to stop rising, yet the pumps prevented it from completely flooding the chamber. Soon, everyone was standing knee-deep in murky water that soaked the ancient timbers and turned the stone floor into a dangerous, slippery trap. Then the team realized something even more alarming. The flooding mechanism had been designed to become even stronger as the ocean tide increased. Every passing hour made the system more powerful, proving that the builders had anticipated almost every possible attempt to steal their treasure. With the flooding temporarily stabilized, the recovery operation finally began. Nothing about it was easy. Heavy machinery couldn't be used without risking the collapse of the centuries-old chamber. Instead, the crew relied on ropes, pulleys, and painstaking manual effort. One by one, each 40-pound gold bar was carefully lifted toward the surface. Massive treasure chests weighing hundreds of pounds were wrapped inside reinforced lifting nets before being slowly raised through the 160-foot shaft. Every minute demanded absolute precision. The work continued in near darkness while the constant threat of returning floodwaters hung over every decision. Each creak from the pulley system and every unexpected splash echoed through the chamber, sending another wave of tension through the crew. They weren't simply recovering treasure anymore. It felt as though they were challenging the final defenses left behind by the pirates themselves. But the gold wasn't the chamber's greatest secret. As preparations were being made to remove the last group of treasure chests, metal-detecting expert Gary Drayton noticed something unusual. One chest looked noticeably different from all the others. It was smaller, lighter, and built from cedar instead of oak, a wood famous for resisting moisture and decay. It immediately stood out. Unlike the surrounding chests overflowing with coins and precious stones, this one held something completely unexpected. Wrapped carefully in wax and layers of waterproof oilcloth were leather-bound ledgers, sealed documents, and tightly rolled nautical charts. For a brief moment, disappointment swept through the team. There were no glittering jewels inside. But that feeling disappeared the instant Rick Lagina carefully unfolded the first chart. Everyone realized they were looking at something that could prove even more valuable than millions in gold. These papers had the potential to rewrite pirate history. The documents weren't written in plain language. They were encoded using an elaborate cipher that blended Masonic symbols, Templar imagery, and a unique shorthand apparently created by pirates themselves. Fortunately, another small book, hidden inside the chest, appeared to contain the decoding key. As the translations slowly progressed, an astonishing story began to emerge. The legendary pirates remembered by history, Blackbeard, Calico Jack Rackham, and Captain William Kidd, were portrayed very differently than anyone expected. According to these records, they weren't simply independent outlaws sailing wherever fortune took them. They were members of something much larger. The papers described an enormous secret organization known simply as the Syndicate. Rather than operating as scattered pirate crews, These captains functioned like executives inside a sophisticated international enterprise. Resources were shared, major decisions were coordinated, and profits flowed into a centralized financial system created to store and move enormous fortunes across the Atlantic. Oak Island, according to the ledgers, served as the Syndicate's northern treasury. And it wasn't the only one. The charts hidden inside the cedar chest weren't ordinary treasure maps pointing toward buried chests. Instead, they documented secure transfer routes connecting hidden vaults stretching from the Caribbean all the way to Madagascar, with Oak Island acting as the primary storage center for North American operations. The financial records revealed something even more extraordinary. They documented investments in colonial businesses, detailed payments between distant ports, and even listed bribes allegedly paid to powerful officials serving England and Spain. Suddenly, the traditional image of pirates as isolated criminals no longer seemed complete. The boundaries separating pirates, privateers, merchants, and government officials appeared far more complicated than history books usually suggest. Rather than being reckless thieves, these men seem to have created one of history's earliest international underground financial networks. If authentic, the discovery would fundamentally reshape our understanding of piracy during the early 18th century. Instead of chaotic bands of rebels, the records described an organized criminal corporation operating with remarkable efficiency and secrecy across multiple continents. Perhaps their greatest achievement was the strategy itself. By dividing their wealth among numerous heavily protected vaults, the Syndicate guaranteed that losing one captain, or even one treasure chamber, would never destroy the organization. The fortune worth roughly $110 million recovered from Oak Island suddenly looked far less significant. According to the documents, it represented only a single deposit within a much larger financial network. That realization finally explained the incredible engineering hidden beneath the island. No single pirate crew could have designed and constructed such an elaborate system alone. It was the product of a coordinated operation involving an organization with immense resources, remarkable planning, and a determination to protect its fortune for generations. According to the records, this incredible underground complex wasn't built by a single pirate crew. It was financed by a powerful alliance of the most notorious pirate captains of their era. And perhaps the most astonishing discovery of all was that the recovered maps appeared to identify the locations of other hidden vaults. That was the moment the real mystery truly began. As word spread about the reported $110 million treasure and the extraordinary documents recovered beneath Oak Island, the story exploded across the globe. Overnight, the island transformed from a centuries-old curiosity into the focus of the archaeological world. News helicopters filled the skies while researchers, historians, and museum specialists traveled to the small island in Nova Scotia, hoping to witness history firsthand. For Rick and Marty Lagina, it was the reward they had spent decades chasing. The years of sacrifice, relentless determination, and unwavering belief in Oak Island had finally led to a discovery beyond anyone's imagination. While the treasure was placed under tight security, teams of historians and cryptography experts carefully examined the fragile documents, slowly unlocking the secrets hidden inside their coded pages. The world celebrated, but success brought a new danger. Few people realize that discovering an enormous treasure doesn't just attract admiration, it also attracts unwanted attention. Before long, the team began noticing unsettling signs. Unidentified drones hovered over the island after dark. Boats with no visible markings lingered offshore for hours at a time. Although the Syndicate had supposedly vanished centuries ago, the promise of its hidden fortune still had the power to draw people from around the world. Security around Oak Island was increased dramatically. The quiet island that had once welcomed only determined treasure hunters was now protected like a high-security fortress. Amid all the excitement, one crucial detail was easy to overlook. The maps and ledgers represented far more than historical records. They were a guide to unimaginable wealth. But they were also an invitation to anyone willing to risk everything to claim it. Treasure hunters, criminal organizations, collectors. Every one of them now had a reason to follow the same trail. To those watching from home, it may have looked like the perfect ending to one of history's greatest mysteries. In reality, it was only the beginning. For the Lagina brothers, solving one mystery had opened the door to an even greater one. Then another possibility emerged. What if the documents contained one final secret? Hidden among the translated pages were subtle references to a mysterious failsafe, something known only to the original founders of the Syndicate. If those clues were genuine, then Oak Island had never been the final destination. It was only the first stop. Now the team faced an impossible decision. Should they hand the recovered maps over to governments and archaeological authorities, allowing nations to battle over whatever remained? Or should they continue the search themselves, following the trail left behind by the pirates centuries ago? The maps pointed toward several remarkable locations. Remote swamps in Louisiana, a volcanic island somewhere in the Caribbean, even an ancient catacomb hidden beneath a historic European city. If the Oak Island vault was any indication, every one of those places could be protected by equally sophisticated traps and engineering designed to keep intruders away forever. Instead of solving the Oak Island mystery, the discovery had transformed it into something far bigger. The reported $110 million treasure no longer seemed like the ultimate prize. It looked more like proof that an enormous hidden network may once have existed, a fortune that, if real, could stretch into the billions. And perhaps the greatest treasure wasn't the gold at all. It was the knowledge. A forgotten chapter of history that suggested the world's most infamous pirates may have been connected by something far more organized than anyone had ever imagined. The biggest question now is no longer what lies beneath Oak Island. It's what else the Syndicate may have hidden across the world. The search, it seems, is only getting started. What do you think? Was the Syndicate simply an alliance of ruthless pirates? Or could it have been something much greater? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next mystery.